You've got 6 people.
Oh, dear.
Okay, now that. Oops.
Well, this. Good morning, good noon. Hello. My name is David Luz, and I'm introducing myself, right, Sarah? Yes. Right? Yep, okay. David Luz, and I live in Pennsburg, and I was the executive director here just prior to Beth retiring in 2020, right at the start of the COVID. Beth and I switched, and she came on board. And I've taken 6 groups to the homelands on tours. And the first time I was there was in 1998. And so I've been there about every 3 or 4 or 5 years or so for some nice visits. Now, I'm what? Oh, I'm really loud. Can I get back here?
That's fine. I can
Okay.
And if you.
I what?
That's fine.
Okay.
Do you all hear?
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me online?
Yeah, online's fine.
Okay.
I'm trying to get rid of.
What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, this is not a slick presentation. Do not expect anything fancy. This is very informal. I'm going to try to, the slides aren't super duper, but now what?
I'm trying to get rid of that. There, it did it, but now you need your right slide.
It doesn't do anything now. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
There.
Okay. This is very informal. These are, it jumps around a little bit. So be prepared for that. They're short little vignettes. If I try to pronounce any Polish words, there's no guarantee that that's correct. Like Dolny Śląsk is basically Polish for Lower Silesia. But I'm not sure how you really pronounce it. They always laugh at me whenever I try to pronounce anything in Polish. If you have any questions as I go, or if I don't make sense, please don't hesitate to interrupt and ask me, that's fine. And I'm not really sure how long this will take, but I'll stop before 1 o'clock, that's for sure. So where are we? We'll be in Poland. We're in Lower Silesia. I circled it. I figured out how to actually circle things on slides. So there's Poland in Europe, you can see. There's Poland on the left, and Poland is made up of, I learned something here, Poland is made up of voivodeships, which are like provinces or states. And on the left side of the screen, it's those darker green lines or black lines. The larger areas on that map are the states or voivodeships in Poland. And on the right, and then the next lower political makeup is called powiats, or counties or districts. And on the right is the Lower Silesia voivodeship enlarged, and the powiat we're mostly dealing with, where the Schwenkfelders mostly came from, is Złotowia, and that's Powiat Szwatoryski, something like that. And then we go to, under the powiat, we have gminas, communes or municipalities, and we're in the gmina, which is circled there, the gmina Pogromzymka, okay? And in the Pogromzymka gmina, then there are what we might say are non-incorporated villages. And Twardowice is encircled in red on the right on the map. You can see that. Pogromzymka is just a little bit to the right. Above, you can see where all the dots are, and then Złotary is on the left. So that gives you some sense of where we are. Not everything is going to take place in Twardowtica, but some of the important things that we like to think about are. Well, right now we're going away from all of that and still in Lower Silesia in Breslau. And about 15 years ago, there was a Facebook page called Beard of Breslau. And the guy would go around and take pictures of old German sayings or names, street names, sometimes businesses names that would had been hidden after the Second World War, but were starting to come out now. And sometimes they were under plaster, sometimes just paint, etc. And he sort of disappeared about 4 or 5 years ago, hasn't been posting. In the last couple months or so, he started to post a little bit more. And I should say, I was going to say this at the beginning and I didn't, so I'm sorry, but a lot of this is from Facebook. A lot of what I have is from Facebook. It's also some emails and also some WhatsApp chats that I have with some of the folks over there. So this is not the best answer, not the best illustration, because this is actually Polish sign, an old Polish sign that's faded. But it's a reference to Eberhard Mach, and which is not going to mean anything to anybody except me, I think, as he was a detective in a novel by a Polish author, writing about 15, 20 years ago, a detective, and he set his piece in 1930s Breslau. And I always thought it was interesting, his book, I always thought it was interesting that a young Polish writer would set a novel in pre-Poland Breslau. So anyway, he wrote a few. He's on there, apparently on there. He was very active, showing a lot of German that was coming, that was they were preserving now instead of trying to get rid of. And he would take people on tours and that kind of thing. And apparently he's becoming active again. The guy down in the lower left is Joseph Zaprutsky. We're shifting to another thing now, another vignette now. And Joseph just posted this on Facebook on April 25th. Joseph is a friend of ours. His son, Conrad, stayed with us, oh, I don't know, was it 8 or 10 years ago now, Alan? He stayed with Alan and was around for a couple summers. He did twice. Joseph has been here once or twice. Joseph also has a lot of interest in, now, who wrote the Iron Collar? Anybody know?
Fedor Sommer.
Fedor Sommer, okay. He's interested in Fedor Sommer, and he's translated the Iron Collar, which is, the German title was Die Schwenkfelder, into Polish, and he's done 1 or 2 other things. But here he's presenting to the Young Scientists Conference of a regional, of the 3-country region. Down the lower right-hand corner shows where the 3 countries, Poland, Germany, and Czech Republic. And if you look in the upper right-hand corner, if you read the bottom of that list, it says historical confessional issues, Protestants, Catholics, and Schwenkfelders. So Joseph is a good friend of ours from Jelenia Gora, which is a little south of Twardowtica that we were looking at. But he still talks about the Schwenkfelders. He still appears on Facebook once in a while, doing some interesting things. The title of his presentation was Silesian Historical and Confessional Issues as a Basis for the Contemporary Cultural Tourism. And that will come up a little bit more as we go. This is a terrible slide, and I'm not going to stay on it too long, but I found it along with this map. And actually, one of the slides is one of those little squares off to the right in this picture. And it's in the museum in Jelenia Gora, the Karkonosia Museum, which we'll come back to a little bit more, because Jolita Zaprutska, Joseph's wife, is the director of that museum. But it had a wonderful illustration of where the settlers who settled into Lower Silesia after the Second World War came from. And I had read this in a couple of books that another Polish friend of ours named Blanca There you go. Thanks, Jerry. Glad you're here, Jerry. She was a tour guide for us for a while and a good friend, but she recommended a couple of books to me that I read, and to me, it was very interesting of where the people came from. First of all, the largest group of settlers were people who came from other parts of the yellow area of Poland and just moved kind of like to find lands there. Those were a large number. And then the light yellow was where Poland was before the Second World War, and that Stalin annexed then as part of, I believe, Ukraine now. And so those people were all forced out of their homes. And some of those, any number of those, also settled in the Lower Silesia region. And then there were also people that came from outside Poland and Germany area, some from Paris, some from other places that settled in the Lower Silesia area as well. And one of our friends, Bojana, Robert and Sylvia Skrotsky and Bojana's parents, I believe, came out of Paris to settle to come back home. They had at some point the families had left and they returned to Poland. But there was also a fourth one that this doesn't mention, and that my books told me about, and that is the Germans that were there previously, that there were a few that married Polish folks, soldiers or whatever, and settled there. And also, if there was some machinery that was needed to be operated or used, or expertise that was needed, some of those people stayed. So this isn't really current event about Lower Silesia, but it's interesting and I want to talk about it, and you're stuck with me, so I just shared that with you for a few minutes. Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, okay. And here's that woman in the upper right-hand picture there. That's Yolita Zaprutska. In English, we don't have these male and female endings. In German, it's IN for females and no IN for males. Basically, that's kind of, and in Polish, it's an I at the end for male. So Zaprutski is the last name. If it was a female like Yolita here, it would be Zaprutska. So that's Yolita Zaprutska. And actually, this was just posted yesterday or the day before, the 6th, May 6th. And she's in Turin, or was, I don't know if she still is in Turin, Italy. And her museum, the Carcanosia Museum, was just accepted into a society of mountain museums. And if you look in the listing on the right, they're from Poland and France and Spain and Canada, Italy, Switzerland, Nepal, Romania, and now Jelenia Gora. So that's since Yolita has gone to that museum about 3 or 4 years ago, she has done amazing things, and there's a lot of Facebook posts about what things that they have done. Another interesting thing that happens occasionally is we get old pictures. There's another 1 or 2 that'll come up. And this came to Beth's email on November 30th. And it was just a mysterious, there were also a couple other things along with this, but it really wasn't, it took a while until we figured out what it was. And who sent it, but a descendant sent it and wanted us and others to have the information. And what it is a picture of the Fiveg monument from 1926. And the interesting couple of things about this picture to us is the posts around the monument. You can see that there's 3 of these posts, and one looks like it might be dated 1926 there, but also the text. Where the text is on the monument, it looks like, and the only thing we can come up with is that it was at one point painted white with the black lettering in the background. And I don't think we knew that before this. I had not heard that before, but that was interesting. I think we figured out who they are, but I didn't write it down, and it doesn't really matter for this presentation, but we're always interested in older pictures. They give us something to run around for. Some friends of ours that we met in 2019 in Tuartetiti are Ella Hiram and their young son, Maximilian Crum. And they bought an old house, which I'll point out to you in a couple of minutes, in Tuartetita. Ella is Polish, Hiram is German. They live in Wrocław, and they were looking for something, a quiet place to purchase a house. And they ended up buying a fixer-upper in Tuartetita and started working on it. We toured the house in 2022. They've gone through official channels to restore the house authentically and as best they can. And they're at the point now where they're starting to open it up for visits. Their idea is to have rooms available for people to stay, and then also presentations and conferences. They had an open house, which she emailed me about on June 14th. And then on the right-hand column is June 22nd, about a group of some Harpersdorfers, Germans that had been forced to leave Harpersdorf, but have returned, and she took them around on visits in Tuartetita, in Harpersdorf. And then she sent me on November 27th an email about this conference. And on the right-hand side is the invitation to the conference translated into English. It's the text at the bottom left that's translated into English. And it's the program entitled Mission Tuartetita, Research and Strategy for the Protection of Monuments in the Lower Silesian Countryside. And it was held at the Faculty of Architecture of the Wrocław University of Science and Technology on November 22nd. And there were 4 presentations. One, a woman, Daria, I'm going to just use the first name, Daria, did a presentation on the research on the church itself. And then the next guy did a presentation on how do you create the tops, very tops. It says tower helmets. That's a translation. There's always interesting translation bugs, but the very top of we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then the guy Marcin talked about what's currently going on with the church. And then there was a presentation. No, that's the last presentation. Marcin did this presentation, which intrigued me, Echoes of Caspar Schwenkfeld's Theological Views in Modern Art. And I communicated with Marcin and had him send me his presentation, and looking at it, and it turns out we would use the term early modern. This is older art, not what I call modern art, which is surrounding you today. But this is Schwenkfeld in earlier, in art of the period. And it actually probably better titled Protestantism Reflected in the Early Modern Art. So it was sort of interesting to see a presentation in Wrocław on that. And then about the same time, October 9th, somebody from the university interviewed the Ella and Hiram and wrote this up. And I'm not going to go through it all, except that they posted it on Facebook with a bunch of pictures, and we'll look at the pictures now. And this is their house in Silesia, very close to the church. I'll show you that in a couple of minutes, how close it is. All of that was either hidden by slate siding, or it was refurbished and redone. I don't want to take a whole lot of time. And you can see how close it is to the church, because off of the roof, you can see the top. And if you look closely, and I've looked at it before, I've seen pictures of the church steeple before, the top of the steeple is missing. And we'll talk about that in a couple minutes too. This is inside, showing you some of the timber work inside, structural work. They're a very interesting couple, and actually Ella the woman will appear again in a slightly different context. May 4th or May 5th, I'm not sure, it might have been May 4th, was apparently Firemen's Appreciation Day throughout Poland. And Angelika Naporowski posted this, and the fireman in Kaspar, I'm not sure whether that she's related to him or just happened to pick him out, and his picture there, and then to the right of him is the firehouse, and you see that the firehouse is right below the church steeple, so it's just right near it, and then there's other pictures around. So that was another post that they did. They're very appreciative. There's any number of posts throughout the year of the fire company, a very active fire company. When we were walking around Tuarteach in 2022, they were practicing on their football fields or their soccer fields, doing what firemen do to practice and prepare and get ready. Here's another old picture that was passed around on Facebook. We probably have seen the picture before here, but you look closely at the church, you see the steeple, the top of the steeple, and then the other thing is the building to the left of the church. That is that's the community building, but it was a hotel in German times. It would have been a hotel or probably a restaurant in there and other things. But the wing that's coming off the back, we'll see a picture, a little bit more contemporary picture, that's gone completely. And I don't know whether that got ruined, it got burned down in the war or when, but that's gone. But it's always nice to receive these old pictures. This post from April 23rd, showed that there's tourism efforts going on in the area. They have the Land of Extinct Volcanoes Geopark is an official regional park there, and they just connected with Global Geopark, with UNESCO Global Geopark. I think that's thanks to the Crown of the Lower Silesia Mountains project. Well, there's another project, the Crown of the Lower Silesia Mountains. There's any number of these, and I don't really have them. They're not looking for foreign tourists as much as they're looking for Polish tourists, and so these efforts are for them. And here's from the website, from one of the websites, they have a picture of the church ruin and the community building, and I mentioned the wing that was gone. You can see that the community building is just a rectangle. It was an L shape prior, at least in that picture that we saw, it's prior to the war. And Ella and Hiram Crum's house is also on this picture. You can see it on the upper left of the photo there. So I got an email from Ella that they announced at that scientific conference that they were going to rebuild the church. And I had not heard that. In 2022, we were there and I talked to some of the local officials, and they told me the plan was to, this is a long-term plan, but the plan was to stabilize the ruins and rebuild the tower and open those out for the public, not to rebuild the whole church. So Ella told me that she had understood that they were going to rebuild the whole. So I wrote to that Daria woman and I asked her, is the ultimate plan to rebuild the church? And she wrote back this email to me. And in the first part of it is she's talking about the conference. And then she said, we are prepared, in bold, the part that's in bold is I've highlighted, and I want to read a little bit of. We prepared inventory drawings of the steeple, and we're talking about digital reconstruction of the interior. So they're working on a digital reconstruction, apparently, of the church and not physical reconstruction. Perhaps an overload of information has led to the confusion. I guess plans of the restoration and opening of the ruins you've heard about have not changed since 2022. From the municipality, we've only heard about the renovation of the tower and restoration of the steeple. And that's what they're working on. And then in the next paragraph, she says that Sarah will be writing her master's thesis upon the ruins next semester, which is now. Hopefully she will have written it. The topic of her project will definitely be related to Tuartetitsa. She would also like to incorporate the village layout and houses into the design. And then our final note, I asked her about storks. The storks are not nesting on the church anymore. They use the perch you wrote about. As for the bell, I also asked her, someone had told me that the bell was still in the tower. And I had not seen it, and I wondered if they knew about it. And she said, as for bell, last time we were in Tuartetitsa in August 2023, we saw the bell still in the tower. It's not operating anymore. There is no clapper, only the outside part remains. And she sent me some photos. And there's a nice photo of the bell in the tower. So that is still up there in the Tuartetitsa church tower. And what they did as part of the preservation, they got very concerned at the very top of the steeple, which I think is made of all metal, and then its wooden frame up to that point. They were afraid that that wooden frame would collapse and the top part of that steeple would fall and fall. So to preserve it, to help to preserve that, they removed it. And I forget when they showed these pictures on Facebook when that happened, but I couldn't track it down to exactly when it was. But it was somewhere around the fall of 2022. And you can see the right-hand picture of them lowering it. The crane shows it lowering something inside the church, and that is the steeple inside the church. I think, yeah, if you look at this aerial photo, which is from July 27th, 2023, you can see the steeple right next to the tower inside the church. And then they sealed it off a little, supposedly sealed it off a little bit better to keep people from climbing all over it. And here's another picture from September 29th, 2023 of the steeple inside the church. And so eventually they're going to document the steeple a little bit more, restore it, rebuild the tower, and stabilize the ruins. That's the, as I understand it now, that's the current plan. The only thing they need is money, I think. So now we're going to hop to Grodziak Castle. For many years, Grodziak Castle was very active on Facebook. There was a lot of postings of their activities, and they had a lot of things going on at Grodziak Castle. Grodziak Castle, for those that aren't aware of what it is, it's the old Groditsberg Castle, and we believe that at least a couple Schwenkfelders were imprisoned there at some point in the mid-1600s, probably during the 30 Years' War. I think, but so we have an attachment. It's about 20 minutes or so drive from downtown Tuartetitsa, and we like to visit the castle. And when we first started going in 2005, there was a guy by the name of Zenon Bernatsky, who was head of the, I guess we'd call him the director of the site. And he was a real character that made us feel welcome. But unfortunately, in about 5 or 6 years, he developed cancer and he died. Then he had a replacement that I can't remember his name, but he never was really all that keen on us. He welcomed us, but it wasn't the same feeling. And then about 5 or 6 years ago, that I think about it, they went silent on Facebook, and I haven't heard anything. Well, they've just started becoming active again. And one of the early posts that they did on the 18th of 23rd was that letting us know that there was a new bridge and they included a couple photos. This is the entry bridge. Once you get to the top of the hill, you got to get into the castle, and cars go across through the wider door. It's that wide. It's big enough for cars to go through. But they widen the bridge so that I don't know if pedestrians are supposed to use the right-hand door now. I'm not 100% sure. But that was one of their summer projects that they did in 2023 that they accomplished. Another project was the well in Grodziak Castle. And there's a well standing there. And if you see the bowl down below a little bit, you see we managed to dig out about 5 meters of beaten filled with rubble and landfill, I guess dirt filled with rubble and landfill debris. We've reached the first post-war years. It sounds like they have a long way to go yet. That's what they've only reached. Inside, we found Eberhardt's lost columns, 17th century halbards, fragments of sculptures, elements of furnishing castle rooms, and many items valuable to the castle's history. How they ended up in the well, nobody knows, but they dug them out, and they included some pictures that I put on this little mural, and it might be a little hard to see. In the upper left-hand corner is the well that they've been in. Right below that is some of the workmen at the top. The upper right-hand corner is showing the working area around the well. And then to the left of that, there's, I think, a halberd and some structural material. And then they have an old picture, bottom right-hand corner, circled in red. And they found that ornament, whatever it is, in the bottom of the well there. And then in April, they posted this, and I don't know who this guy is, whether this guy is associated with a radio station or whether the guy is associated with a castle. I just don't know. But somebody is presenting nine centuries of secrets, and I think if you look at that brochure he's holding, the 9 centuries of secret is sort of the theme written underneath Zamek Grodziak. You can see some smaller writing. And I think in Polish, that might be 9 centuries of secrets, which might be the theme for the castle for the coming year. I don't really know. Slogan of one of the objects, which is located in Lower Silesia, places, a place worth visiting during the May holiday. Here you can really learn about the history and relax. This Friday, the 26th, at 8:30 p.m., our guest, Doxy Traveling, will be Mariusz Barbera, chairman of the board of Zamek Grodziak. So I don't know if this is a new replacement now. I'm out of the loop, but it's always interesting to see. This is sort of how I pick things up of what's going on, and a lot of the time I'm a little not really sure. But apparently things are happening again at Grodziak Castle, and I'm pleased to see that. And the first 3 days of May, they had different activities each day, and I quick grabbed these to show. They had the guys with the flags must have been performing, and a lot of people around. I loved the bricks that the kids could play with, the very colorful blocks that they could make. I thought that was an excellent idea for children's activities, because they always have kids there. But they always have a lot of things going on, and it was quiet for a while, but it's coming back, which I'm pleased to see. Now we're going to go way up north. We're going north of Kwartatici, north of Liegnitz or Legnica, to Lubin, outside of Lubin to Osik. And Osik is, of course, where Schwenkfeld came from. Their family's estate was there. And we've gotten to know the owners of Osik, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But this, with the next couple of slides, we're going to look at something they started about 8 or maybe, no, it wasn't that long. Maybe a couple of years before COVID. So about 5-6 years ago, I guess. They started one Sunday a month at first to have a farmer's market at Schwenkfeld's estate, at the Ossig Schwenkfeld's estate area. And it was worked well, so they upped it to every other week. So for a year or so, they did every other week. And then they started doing it every week, and they've been doing it every Sunday since that time. And the right-hand side shows you some of the photos they have, and there I have a bunch more. But the middle one on the right shows you a structure. At first, they were not in this building. This is a horse training area to get. I guess if it was inclement weather, they also have horses at the estate, but they were using that as an indoor, not as a barn to store the horses, but to train the horses. But now every Sunday they have a market there. So I don't know if the horses work in there during the week or if it's dedicated to the market now. I just don't know. I just don't know. But here's that you can get a better feel for the size. On the right-hand side, they have other vendors coming in, and there's always fruits and vegetables. There's crafts. There's lots of bread. There's always bread. Good breads are brought in, and meats. All the Polish sausages, the variety of sausages and meats, fresh produce in the summer. They get lots of that. More breads. I don't know if this is a food truck. I assume that's a food truck or a butcher's truck that comes in and parks with all the meats on the right. So it's become a very active place, and I think that's really cool. In the next heritage tour, we always go to church in Twardowtica, but this runs from 10 till 2. So I think we'll leave the church and drive up and get our lunch at the farmer's market at Schwenkfeld's estate for the next heritage tour. And this is the latest. Well, no, actually, they put out Facebook posts 2 or 3 times a week promoting. Somebody's very good at promoting this, and they do an excellent job. And this is half the post, and I'm going to flip it. It's going to be all text, but there's people sitting out in chairs in sunny weather. There's this smiling guy with his goodies there and buns, and then they have a close-up of one of the buns. And I'm not going to read this whole thing, but they have ice cream, all different flavors of ice cream. Special excellent lemonade that's there. Apple mint is a real good thing to drink. And the coffee on a sunbed. Oh, you can't see. One of the last things, I wanted to mention this, the wording on the left-hand side. I'm not sure what Zagroda Smaku translates as, but I think it means something like we would say taste of home. There's a literal translation which really doesn't make sense in the context. So I think it's an expression like we would say taste of home, like grandma used to make. Yeah, that sort of thing to entice you to come and try. And then down the very bottom, it says the translation for Folwark I Stania Osik says Osik flower garden and stable. And I don't quite understand the flower garden. I'm not sure that that's whether it translated very well, but it's also a stable. So anyway, so they've got an excellent marketing person that posts a lot of stuff, and it just makes me drool when I see all the good stuff that they have there. Now we're back to the Viehweg monument. This is a very typical picture sent on August 28th, and it shows. I think that they're showing that the monument is good shape. I forget whether Robert sent this to me or Bojana, I'm not sure. But you can see in the background the Spitzberg, which is nice. And then in the foreground, the translation stone that's, I think, Polish facing us. And then there's a side where English, and then the monument itself. And the flowers and the lanterns, they love to put lanterns on tombstones and cemeteries. And so they like to have the lanterns there for us, and that's nice. And that was probably from Bojana. On the right is Bojana. Bojana is she is a good friend that lives right downtown Twardotita, and she and her husband Andrew, and Andrew is in the yellow T-shirt on the left there with the ping pong paddle waving. Andrew and Bojana look after the monument for us, and she sent this, and just with 2 words basically, festive and best regards. And festive, and this December 17th, so she had put some seasonal appropriate flowers at the monument. I'm assuming they're plastic. And then in April, they sent me these pictures. There was a table tennis tournament. We'd been kidding around about that for a couple of years. They played table tennis, and I wanted to play Andrew in table tennis. The guy on the left is the mayor of Twardotita, Stanislaw, and the guy on the right is Andrew, Bojana's husband. And they got married during COVID. Yeah, the T-shirts are library T-shirts. We always take gifts along, and I think part of this, they were showing us that they were wearing their T-shirts. Okay, I got to keep moving here. Bojana sent these messages on April 28th of 2024. And then in December, Robert sent this. This is the interior, Christmas interior of the church this past Christmas of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church was built in the 1740s. Our tradition is, I'm not sure if it was ever documented, but our tradition is that it was built from the fines imposed on the Schwenkfelders during the Jesuit persecution. And you can see the Christmas trees in the front of the church. And then he sent me these pictures from the Feveg Monument. And this post on the left with the USB or the code, whatever you call that code now, that was not there before. I'd never seen it before till Robert sent this to me in December 26th. And if you click on the code, which you could probably do with your cameras now, takes you to a Polish website, on Polish tourism website, and it talks about the Schwenkfelders and the Feveg Monument. And this is right toward the entrance to the Feveg. We'll see a little bit of that in a couple minutes. And this is part of the pictures, and the website is hidden or secret sites in Lower Silesia, and for the active tourists. And they're trying to get people to go to some of these lesser known sites. And this is, they did a nice write-up about the Schwenkfelders. It's mostly accurate, which you always, every once in a while, stuff goes up there that I wish I could get changed somehow, but they did a fairly nice job. It's all in Polish. If you go to the website, it'll be in Polish, but Google Translate frequently will translate that for you. Now some people. The guy in the middle is Peter Boris, and Peter Boris and his wife, and the woman on the left, Ksenia, and her husband, Igor, the 2 couples owned the Schwenkfelds estate. They bought it 6-7 years ago or so, and they've been working on it. They're the ones that started the farmers market, and they started with horses and have been working it. But Peter is a politician, and he's the equivalent of our house. He's in the equivalent of our U.S. House of Representatives in Poland, in the Sejm, the S-E-J-M. I'm not sure exactly how to, and he represents an area that actually goes down to cover Twardotita and covers that area, as well as Lubin, where he's from, which is near Osijek. But he ran this last election, which was March and April. He ran for president of the Lubin Powiat or county, and he did not get elected for that. Ksenia ran for the post on the Lubin, her local council, and she did get elected, which I learned later on. And I don't know who the guy on the right is, but these pictures appeared on Facebook, and they were plastering stuff all over the place in March, and the election was early April. The guy, Igor, I mentioned Ksenia and her husband, Igor. Igor is the guy pictured there. Igor sent this to me by email, and at first he wrote it in Polish, And then I don't know if he used Google Translate to have an English version or if he translated. He's trying to learn English. So he writes to me every once in a while. And he mentioned the Schwenkfelders to one of his teachers. He's trying to become a diplomat, and he's taken courses, and he mentioned Schwenkfeld to one of his teachers about it. And Peter's cousin, Marcin Bors, became a counselor of the Provincial Assembly of Lower Silesian Voivodeship, and this is important news for us because this body subsidizes the renovation of monuments. So the hope is that we can get some people lined up to help support the church's stabilization and tower rebuilding effort to provide some funds for that. We don't know. Another picture of Peter Boris on the right, the guy on the right, Prime Minister Tusk appointed him, or they appointed him as Minister of Sport and Tourism, which is a good position to be in. So it's good that we know Peter and he knows us. He came down to Tuarachiti in 2019 when I did a presentation, and he's been up to the FEBAG. There he is with Donald Tusk. He worked with him in the EU when Donald Tusk was over in the EU. Again, with politics, and I think this is the last slide. I had mentioned the name Angelica, and Angelica sent me a couple things recently. Angelica she was elected official in Tuarachita. She ran for election and was elected again, I think, in Tuarachita. Yulita ran in Jelenia Gora for a council seat, which is mostly voluntary, I believe. And she did not get elected, but she got a lot of votes and a very interesting experience for me, she says. And I thought this was interesting. This was a post from nearby Probstal or Proboszczał, however you pronounce it. And the person, I have no idea who the person is, but they were elected. They said, according to my election program, I solemnly announce that there is a Proboszczał Village Youth Council. And they met and appointed. This was as a result of being elected, a promise she made to develop a youth council. And they were concerned, and their goals are to construct an eagle. I think something got mixed up with the translation there. Expanding the outdoor gym with additional equipment, integration of inhabitants, cultivating tradition. They have a strong fall festival or activities and harvest festival. And so the youth are interested in promoting and preserving that. So I just threw that up there as part of interest. Marguerite, a good friend of ours in Görlitz, which is on the border, and it's actually, she's in Germany, Görlitz, Germany, Marguerite Kempkin. She sent us this article. When did she do this? Back in December. And Alan translated it, which is on the right-hand side. And in Langneuendorf, there was also a special grave location. There was a Viehweg, what we would say a Viehweg in Langneuendorf. And we're aware of that. We're aware that there were other Viehwegs than the one we have preserved and put a monument of. But this gentleman actually shows where it is from this picture. And the white dot is a monument. On the upper picture, the top picture, there's kind of a glaring white dot. That's a monument. And then there's a path that you follow up, and there's two arrows, white arrows that you can make out top left. And the one to the right points to where it used to be a shooting range, but the one pointing to the left was where the Viehweg was located. So Alan did some research about that, what Schwenkfelders were buried there. And I have a packet of material if people are interested. I don't know as we know who was buried there, but who immigrated from there and some of the people that lived there. So we have some of that information. And then Marguerite wrote that they actually went there in February. She and Ella, the woman that we mentioned earlier, restoring her home in Tuarachita, and another woman, they went to find this Viehweg, and they think they found it and sent some pictures. And she didn't explain any of the pictures. So these are the pictures she sent. So I'm not sure which shows the ground, but it's ground that would have been a Viehweg, a place of burial, where in Long Neuendorf, which is about 10 or 15 minutes south or west of Twardowskice. And that's some other information that Alan had found about the people that lived there. Twardowskice also had in Twardowskice, there's another active group called TWG, Rural Housewives. And I think it's sort of like, I'm not sure exactly what the group does, except that, well, I know a couple things the group does. I don't understand how they got from, but they have a singing group that sings, and we have a cassette CD of their singing, and they dress up. They have a couple different costumes. These are not folk costumes. I don't want to get into that whole story, but these are performing costumes. But they also seem to be responsible for decorating the community building seasonally. And they do a couple other things too. An active and interesting group. And then they sent me this email April 30th, just April 30th. And I'm not going to read the whole email because we're running out of time. But basically, they took it on our Viehweg. They took on a project of I think related to what we would call Arbor Day, or possibly related to Earth Day. They got some free seedlings that they planted. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but anyway, they did it. And they also added some flowers to the monument, decorated a little bit, and cleaned it up. And then they spray painted the rocks. They love the rocks to be white. And so every once in a while, they'll go out and spray paint all the rocks, and you can see on the right-hand picture, the larger one, the rocks leading into the Viehweg. And also you can see that post that the tourist organization put up there. I wasn't sure where they put it up, but they put it up there. Also, if you look close, and I don't know as it really shows, it'll show in other pictures maybe, there's a bench up there and there's a trash can up there. There you can see the bench, and there's the post. Angelica sent me these, which was very nice. It's wonderful. It's very nice that they took the time to do the work and put some expense into our Viehweg monument. Well, it's actually theirs. It's actually, the monument belongs to Poland. It's not ours anymore. So it's not really ours, but so there's another shot. You get a nice view of it from April 30th, or right around that time. Looking down back into the village, interesting photo. And then she downloaded, this is some history text from, I think, from one of the sites that I translated. It's talking about the Schwenkfelders story, etc. And I think it said who were the Schwenkfelders type of thing, description, because the last sentence says we shall change the question to who are the Schwenkfelders, because it talks about there are Schwenkfelders in the United States now. So here's Peter Boris again. They posted this April 20th. They went to a concert at the Peace Church in Yower, and they were recorded. Jesu, Joy of Man's Desire was playing in the background on a video that I couldn't get on here. I'm moving. This was a poster that was a part of the president or the head of the Pilgrim Simcha county or district, Mr. Sebas, Thomas Sebas, who's been in that position since about 2007 or 8 or so. I think, well, it might be 2009 or 10. We met him right when he got elected. But this has to do with the restoration that I translated. They're looking, I think they're either looking for 500,000 Polish zlotys, which is about $126,000, or they spent that already on the monument. Since it was an election poster, it may have been him talking about what he's done in the community. And then there were some comments below about the reconstruction of Angelica, who was one of the elected officials, wrote, it's important to do that. Gregor Gadzinski was another elected official at the time, although he didn't run for re-election this time. And he also wrote the importance of following through with that. This Robert sent me in my friend Robert Skrotsky has relatives in Twardatitsa. Bojena is his mother-in-law. And there's a sign right which was put up. Oh, I think we went in 2017. I think that's when the sign went up, pointing to the path to the Fibeg. And at the top of the telephone pole there, you see a stork, and then also off to the left, you'll see stork's nest. And remember that little nest there, because I'll refer to it in a couple minutes. We always like to get photos of people that went to the Fibeg monument. And this is Stephen Maund, the guy just about in the middle, and his wife Vicky and his twin children, who are, I think this was last summer, so they're going off to school now. And then Bojena and Andrew, and they knew they were going and let me know, and I connected them with them. This was just April 9th. Angelica sent this to me, and I don't know who that couple is. Does anybody recognize them? If anybody watches this later, or anybody watching this recognizes, please let me know who they are. I'm curious. I tried to ask Angelica and she didn't get back to me. So we may find out later on, but I'm assuming they showed up in town and somehow asked around, and Angelica helped them to find the Fibeg monument. Now, I should click on this, see what happens. This is here it goes. So this was a little video that appeared on Facebook. I had the date we'll go back to that screen. It's a very short about the church and the Fibeg. And I was able to translate the gray, the little things in gray. And there's also, if you click on the writing down the bottom, there's a lot more history. Now it's repeating. So any suggestion on how to get out of here? There we go. Okay. So then this is the translation of the stuff that was in gray, which I'm not going to read, but it talks about the Schweinfelder story there. 300 years ago, a Lower Silesian village and surrounding witnessed the persecution of a people who wanted freedom of opinion and religion. And I think they did a fairly good job of it, of the translation. And then this was the more detailed text of the translation. And then, and it talks about there's a lot misconception that the church was a Schweinfelder church. And this takes that misconception, I think this is the one, maybe it's not, but one of these references.
The second paragraph.
Yeah, does it? Yeah, but this is doubtful, it says. So it corrects that erroneous thought. And they did a good job. And down the very bottom, it says the land of extinct volcanoes. And, oh, nuts. Something about Lower Silesia. Now, okay. Something about Lower Silesia, or going away on the weekend, unobvious or hidden Lower Silesia, Poland for the weekend, unknown places in Poland. I think these are all efforts by tourism industry to get tourists to go to smaller places in the area. The guy pictured is Robert McCaig, and we met him up with him. I think it was 2010 or 14 Heritage Tour. He contacted me out of the blue. He grew up in Osijek, and at that time, his interest was bicycling around India, but he was also interested in local history. And so every once in a while, he takes a group here, and the post on April 12th said that they are visiting us. So he's bringing a group in, and he had this picture of the church, which is a fairly recent picture. And then there were some comments that real quick. But Robert posted, no one has noticed the stork yet. I want to go back to this picture. Can anybody see the stork in this picture? It took me a few minutes to find it. While you're looking, on the left, at the very top of the ruin is an old stork's nest. And the part of the preservation of the ruins was to get rid of the storks, to stop the storks from nesting on the ruin itself. And so they put up that pole that we saw in the earlier picture where the stork's nest was, and it took a couple years, and the storks eventually moved their nest over to that site, and they left I don't know why they left the nest there, but they left the nest there. I don't know what happens, but it's all grown over now. Storks aren't using it. Do you see the stork? Yeah, in the middle, if you look down the tower, go down the tower to the edge of the ruin, you can see a little white speck, and that's the stork there. You can see him in the picture, the very top of the ruins. He's sitting up there on that one. And this is a link to one of the, I'm not going to hit it, but this is a link to one of the Facebook I follow, what groups I follow. Our village, it's called Our Village Twartotita, and it's just volunteers run it, and locals post things of interest to the community. A lot of stray dogs. The other day, Angelica posted a picture of some couple cows along the road, and she said there's 2 bulls out. If the owner wants to come and get them, otherwise be careful if you're driving along such and such a road. So there's delightful postings every once in a while. And this is the last picture. Bojana on the left, my friend Robert in the middle, Sylvia, his wife, and Claudia, their daughter, is on the right. Claudia came over one summer for about 5 weeks and stayed with us. So, any questions? That was a quick view of some of the things going on in Twartotita and Lower Silesia.
Dave, are you staying in touch with any other places that you Goldberg or any of the other communities?
Wataria, Goldberg is Wataria, and I don't have, every once in a while, some of the postings come out of Wataria. They've been quiet. They were posting a lot of the museum there and other stuff, but they've gone quiet on Facebook posts lately. But not as much, because I know Bojana, I know some of these people more personally, so I see them.
Dave, there's a question online, I wanted to know if you could put together, a list of the books that you mentioned. If you could send out in the video.
What?
You had mentioned some books that you had read.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
You have to say.
Okay, I will, what am I doing? I'm sending it. Oh, the question was, I mentioned books. And now I have to remember where I mentioned books and write the titles, and I'll try to work on that and see if we can accomplish that. Any other questions, thoughts? That we're after one. I didn't mean to do that, but thank you for your patience and your attention. I'm not going to touch it. Oh, thank you for letting me say. Oh, man, am I sick.